It's Kevin Keatsman Uncanceled on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
Good morning, Kansas City. Welcome to Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. I'm Kevin Keatsman, and we are locked in on draft day. No, it's not going to be a sports show today, but we will talk a little bit about the NFL draft and some issues around sports on the show today, including comments from Donald Trump yesterday in the Oval Office at the White House about the Kansas City Chiefs. Oh, I have your attention now. We'll have that for you in just a moment. We'll also talk a little bit about CBS News and the trouble they're in with their lawsuit that Trump has against them. We'll do that in the second half hour today, as the executive producer this week has resigned from 60 Minutes, saying he no longer has control over the show because apparently the mandate from the top is to be more fair. Try to be more honest. We're 60 Minutes, and that's not working at 60 Minutes for the executive producer, so he is out. And, of course, we'll check in with Mark, who I think we mentioned a couple of days ago, has a perfect, what do we call it, an auto draft?
Mock draft.
I know it's a mock draft, right. But when you do that, it's a game, right?
Yeah,
the computer?
I just choose for the Chiefs, and then the computer chooses for every other team.
So it'd be like an auto draft.
Yeah.
Right? I know it's a mock draft, Mark.
Yeah.
Thanks. I know. I got that part. But it automatically fills in the other picks, and then when the Chiefs are on the clock, you pick.
That's right.
You're not going to believe this. It was like a perfect score. We're so proud of him. He does way better at mock drafts than he did in school, but that's okay. We're all better at things like that than we are in school. Almost all of us. We'll start today with something that happened in the White House that was, it just caught my ear because we talked earlier this week about the high school in Long Island, Mascot High School, and the state of New York requiring them to change their name from Chiefs to something that is non-Native American because apparently it's offensive to be the Chiefs. The tide is turning. The public has spoken on this through elections and polling. Nobody wants anybody named Chiefs or Warriors or Indians to change their name because it's about a Native American moniker or something like that. So it came up at the White House yesterday because this reporter, and I don't know who this guy is, but we're going to play this clip for you. The reporter's asking Trump about the Washington Commanders, and the Cleveland Guardians come up. The Washington Commanders were the Washington football team for a year. They didn't even have a mascot, but they used to be the Redskins. And the land they're wanting to build a new stadium on is federal land. And the federal government will be involved, and they believe that the Washington football team is a big part of Washington, D.C., and the federal government community there. It's all their team. And so Trump is a little caught off guard, not whether he's going to be involved in this, but whether or not he would demand as part of the possibility of funding some sort of a name change back to Redskins, which I think would be awesome. And then, Trump, he starts, of course, talking about Brittany Mahomes. Here we go. Roll that beautiful bean footage.
You said when you came in, you were going to make Washington, D.C. great again. Right. One of the issues we've got right now is we understand there might be an imminent deal between the owner of the Washington football team, whatever you want to call them now, Commanders, and locally in getting the Redskins back to D.C. and RFK Stadium. That's on federal property. Right. Are you going to be involved in that negotiation?
Yeah.
And would one of the stipulations be they change their name back to the Redskins?
Oh, I see. Well, that's a little bit, nobody's asked me that one. Look, I think when the Indian population is a great part of this country, great heritage. And we were talking about Massapequa, Long Island, the Chiefs. They call themselves the Chiefs. Or the Kansas City Chiefs. They're not changing their name. A great team, great people, great owners, great coach and quarterback. I love the quarterback, like his girlfriend too, and his wife. His wife is great. She's been a big fan. His quarterback's mother is incredible. I like that team. They're called the Chiefs, and frankly, I see nothing wrong with it. They call them the Warriors, and not that team, but a lot of other teams, and all of these Indian surnames and different names. And I'm saying that I think that's a positive thing. And when you go back to Indians, they poll this. They don't know why these names are being taken off. They're trying to. I think it's degrading to the Indian population, and it's a great population, and they like when they're called by various names. Now, Washington. The Redskins, perhaps that's a little bit different, but I can tell you that I spoke to people of Indian heritage that love that name and they love that team, and I think it's a superior name to what they have right now. And
Okay, so there's Trump on the issue, and I'm 100% with Trump on this one, 100% across the board. I think it's degrading to take these things away. It's no different than when we get upset that they're tearing down monuments or trying to erase American history, things that we love, respect, and revere about this land. There is a faction of people in this country that have been in control that want to get rid of in many ways, our history of doing really great things around the world, like winning world wars and providing peace and stability in regions that didn't have them. We've done great things as a country. And any person, we're all human, any person has flaws and has done things they regret and made mistakes. It's the same with a country. You don't wipe out an entire section of something in your country because you've done 100 great things. You did a couple of really bad things over here. So we got to wipe out 30 things because we did these 2 bad things. That's where we are. That's what these people want us to do. And I literally just don't know anybody that doesn't respect Native Americans and people, the indigenous people that were here. If you want to call them colonists, great, because they did. They formed a colony. They came over from Europe. They took the land. You don't have to be proud of that, whatever. Once it was done, we start a country, and this country's been pretty damn good. It's done a lot of great things on this planet for humanity. And I'm tired of apologizing for the United States or hearing people try to apologize for the United States. And Trump is right. It can be degrading. If you start stripping everything Native American from our culture, it's not understanding what this land is about, how our country was formed, and what an integral part of our country these people are and remain today. It's really important. And I think Chiefs, first of all, we know that the Chiefs were named after H. Roe Bartle, who was the mayor of Kansas City. His nickname was the Chief because he was the chief executive of the city. But then they adopted very quickly a headdress logo in the arrowhead and said, this is how we'll be known. We're the Chiefs. It all fit together beautifully in Kansas City and was never meant to be racist or disrespectful. And people didn't like the horse running around and war paint and all these other things, but it was great. It was I grew up here, lived my whole life. It was a great way to grow up following that and watching that. And Trump is absolutely right. If we go take all this stuff away, it isn't much different than taking away monuments from the United States or closing cemeteries or tombstones or tearing this down and breaking this tradition down. It's not good. And he absolutely nails it. Now, if people are offended by Redskins, I guess I could. It's not my plight, so I can't speak for any Native Americans. But I could understand where that one sounds more offensive than your chief, your tribal chief, or a warrior. No different than they're the commanders. Those are warriors. We have warriors all over the place that are, we have cowboys. They were certainly out there battling on the plains. The whole thing's ridiculous. It's a sports mascot. It is not intended to offend. It is not meant to be offensive. If Native Americans come forward and say, everything else is okay except Redskins, I can live with them not being the Redskins. And I don't know what the Washington football team should do, but Commanders doesn't really work for me. And this is one Trump's going to win with the American public again. If this becomes an issue over the next couple of years and federal funding is involved in building a new stadium where the old RFK stadium is, if that's where they build it and there's federal funds involved, he's going to have a say. And it'll be really interesting to see if they do polling and say, should we go back to Redskins? I pointed out a couple days ago, there are multiple high schools, public and on Native American land or reservations, where they still use the name Redskins proudly. These are Indian schools. These are Native American tribe schools. And there are public schools that are largely, the student body at these schools is Native American or from a certain tribe, and they're not getting rid of it. So apparently that's not offensive to them. They like it. Trump's on it again, and I just thought it was, he got out over his skis there. Well, let's see, is Patrick married to Brittany or is he not? I could see the wheels in his head turning. His girlfriend just loves us, and then the mom, it's his wife. That's exactly right. Good stuff. All right, we also got the news that there are 60,000 signatures now to recall Frank White in Jackson County. Pete talked about this at great length today. And I'm going to go a different route on this because it just occurred to me as I'm hearing Pete and others talk about how Frank White spends all this time with the Monarchs. Look, I think he could and should be recalled. I don't have a vote in Jackson County, so it's up to the people there if they want to do this. He's been standing in the way of the ballpark. He's been standing in the way of the stadium funding. We know that to be true. That's just factual on the record. That's not an opinion. He did, and he stated his reason. He said, the plan doesn't look good to me. There is no plan. You can't even tell me where the Royals are going to be. I can't support this. I get it. I can respect that part for Frank White. The other things he's done in the county look like he's just not very good at his job. But it occurred to me as I'm listening to Pete today, I'm thinking to myself, okay, all this Monarch stuff, and I go online, I'm looking at people replying on social media. He's a part-time minor league coach in Kansas City, Kansas. What the heck does he care about Jackson County for? And this is the light bulb moment. Has anybody asked the question? And I know Frank White doesn't do interviews, so you can't really ask him. I'm not saying it's improper or that it is a conflict of interest, but now that I think about it, it completely has the appearance of a conflict of interest that he is paid by a franchise that would benefit the Chiefs moving to the Legends across the street while being the Jackson County executive, and supposedly his job's to do things for Jackson County. Is there a chance? And I've known Frank a long time, and we've not been close the last 10 years or so as he's gotten into politics. I haven't spoken to him like I did before, but I used to speak to him all the time. Frank's an interesting guy. Frank has treated me wonderfully my whole career. Couldn't have been nicer. But I know this. He has things he's bitter about. And he has people that he just quietly can't stand and will get dug in and never get dug out. He had a feud with George Brett back in the day. He thought there were things with the Royals that were racial components. He didn't think they treated him right as a broadcaster. He wasn't happy that he couldn't be the manager of the team. I don't think he felt like he was in the fold as a former Royal when they had all these events. And for a while, he didn't go forever, and that was on him. Does he like the Royals? He's got no reason to not like current ownership. None. And the people that are there now have never done anything wrong to Frank White. So I don't know. But I'll ask the question. He works for the Monarchs. What do you think the Monarchs would like to have happen? You think they'd like to have the new Arrowhead across the street? I think they would. I think that would be something valuable to them and the property that they have there. And I'm not saying that he has a conflict of interest or he's done anything wrong, but having known Frank all these years, it would not surprise me if privately he doesn't give a rip what happens to the Royals and thinks maybe the best case scenario is for the Chiefs to be over there where he coaches baseball. That's all possible. I don't know anything. I haven't talked to anybody, but I do know what Frank is like. And if that's the way he felt, it would not surprise me. And if that's the way he felt, he would keep it private. It just never occurred to me. He's not getting rich over there coaching for the Monarchs. That's not the point. He's got people over there that cherish him, respect him, value him, which the people of Jackson County don't seem to do these days. And he believes the Royals never really did. And now he's got a group of people that really, really, really honor him and what he has meant to Kansas City baseball and love having him there. And at our core, as human beings, there's always something bigger than money or even fame. It's being loved. It's why we love our dogs so much. They love us more than any human ever has because it's every second of every day. There's never a fight. There's never a disagreement. There's never this quiet solitude in the house where we're not speaking for a moment or two. There is no conflict with your child telling them no and then they throw a fit. Dogs just do what you ask and love you unconditionally. Frank White's feeling that from the Monarchs. That's probably a powerful thing in his world right now, as so many things are not very positive for Frank White. Okay, we'll get to the phones in just a minute or two. Still got a couple of lines open if you'd like to jump in. 408-795-7. I wanted to take a moment or two and ask what the heck happened with this ATV driver they've arrested. You remember the story from April 12th where the dude downtown had the four-wheeler and then ran over the police officer. I believe it was attempted murder. There is no such thing, apparently, in Missouri. You can't charge somebody with attempted murder. So Kendall Coleman has been charged with first-degree assault, armed criminal action, and aggravated fleeing from a scene. That's all excellent and well and good, and I think they should throw the book at him. And Melissa Johnson, the Jackson County prosecutor, is making it sound like she's going to do that. They always say that when it involves a police officer, but I want to see him do it. I'm amazed this guy was all covered up except for like his nose and his eyes. That's the only picture they had. They did see the ATV, so maybe it was easy to track down based on that. But they got him here within a couple of weeks. They got this done. He's in custody right now, and this is a very serious crime. But what in the world happened that night? Have you read the account of what happened? This dude was on a four-wheeler and ran over a cop violently as if to kill him. Went around the corner and took off. Everybody knew which direction. There were other police officers around. They're calling back to dispatch. Cops are moving everywhere. They see him at 31st and Southwest Trafficway or Southwest Boulevard. That's about where that Quick Trip is down from Channel 4, right? That's where they see him. They're like, oh, we got him. No, they don't have him. He keeps driving. What does he do? Apparently, he goes down, it sounds like, to Rainbow and turns right and then gets on I-35, where he starts driving northbound in the southbound lane, swerving in and out of traffic. This dude is on an ATV on an interstate, driving the wrong way, weaving in and out of traffic, and police do not apprehend him that night. I can't even, what? How is that even possible? That's the part of the story that nobody's talking about. By the way, you can't find that story on the Star's website. There's a million places you don't find these stories. I didn't see the Frank White votes thing on the Star's website today when I was there. The TV stations are doing a good job of covering the news in Kansas City, folks. Do not read the Kansas City Star. If you want to know what's going on, listen to KCMO Talk Radio or watch your local news. If you're interested in it, they're still doing local news on the local news, which is great. And Fox 4 has really been leading the way this week. It's been pretty interesting. I cannot figure out how in the world that guy got away on that ATV. To the phones we go, and we start today with Lynn in Leawood. Good morning, Lynn. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
All right. Thank you. Go ahead.
You made a comment about the Chiefs being named after Chief Bartle because he called that because he was the mayor. Actually, he was known as Chief Bartle because he was a scout executive with the Boy Scouts of America, and he was instrumental in forming a honorary organization based on Indian culture and things like that, as part of, similar to what was the Order of the Era, which was an honorary service organization, part of the Boy Scouts of America, and they called it Mikasay. So he's known as Chief Bartle from the Boy Scouts of America designation and his involvement in the Boy Scouts of America.
That is excellent information. I really appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you can see that in the, it used to, I don't know if it's still there, one of the exhibits at the Civic Center.
Nice. Very cool. Appreciate the history. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. And, of course, everyone knew him as the chief of the city as well. That's interesting that his nickname came from that. Did not know that part. Excellent information. Best listeners and callers anywhere. Appreciate you. Here's Charlie. Hi, Charlie. How are you today?
Charlie here. Doing good. Going out here west toward Topeka right now on K10, but listening to your program a little earlier talking about this hoopla over removing the Native American names from various sports organizations. The whole thing is kind of a fiasco because when you look at it, it started with the NBA. They were the ones that started this whole fiasco. And where is the NBA headquarters? Indianapolis, Indiana. How about that?
I thought the NBA's centered in New York these days, sir.
Well, no, it started in Indianapolis.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I wonder if Indianapolis has to change their name. You know, my issue is...
They just don't change their time.
No, right. I know, yeah. My issue with Shawnee Mission North has always been not the Indians part. It's the fact that it's the Shawnee Indian Mission that you're named after. And if you want to be critical of anything we did with Native Americans, that's near the top of the list. Trying to turn them into white Christians and say you don't know how to farm or what to do with the land, we'll teach you, was about as arrogant, ruthless, and mean a thing as you could do. And many people would say that the Shawnee Indian Mission was extremely racist across the board, not just against Native Americans, but against a lot of people. We might want to look into the history of Shawnee Mission Parkway if we're going to change a name in this town. Let's get on that quick. Uncanceled continues on KCMO Talk Radio. All right, our good friend John Anthony's done a little research here. We see no history of the NBA ever being in Indianapolis. If you were listening to the last segment, we're thinking maybe that was the ABA at one point. Maybe ABA was a very small league that some teams merged into the NBA at one point. I guess in the 70s that would have occurred. And so maybe the Indiana Pacers, who are still there. Originally, that was where maybe the league was centered. I don't know. Or he could be just confusing that the NCAA moved from Kansas City to Indianapolis. I don't know. Not sure how it fits in with mascots. Indianapolis definitely means City of Indians. I mean, literally, that's what I mean. City of Indians. We got to change that. And, Indianapolis, you got to change your name. We can't have that. Like, what if the Indianapolis, if they had a baseball team and their name was the Indians, and they made the Indianapolis Indians, just change the mascot, but not the name of the city? This is how stupid this stuff is.
I mean, Kansas City, too. Kansas.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course. All of these places are named. You can't spit in Oklahoma without hitting something named after Native Americans. Every single road, every street, the state, everything there is named after tribes.
The city I live in, it means beautiful in Indian.
Olathe?
Yeah. Olathe, yeah.
Yeah. Lenexa's, I believe, 2 different Indian tribes were named, or groups. They weren't real tribes here. There were like, I shouldn't even get on this. Smaller groups of Native American communities within one tribe inhabited certain areas. And that's what Lenexa is, I understand it, is named for. So there you have it. All right, Steven's joining us now. Hi, Steven. You're on KCMO Talk Radio. How are you?
Hey, Kev. Thanks for talking about this. You deserve a $3,000 World Cup ticket for talking. I don't know if you saw that one.
I did. I've got it written in my notes here. I haven't gotten to that point yet. We were going to do that at the end of the show.
Listen, it's kind of, I mean, they really want to get rid of the Braves and the Chiefs. You know, I think that's where I'm so glad our president stuck up for this issue. I think it's kind of insulting to the Native Americans to paint them as sort of like naive savages. You know, everyone has bad stuff in their history. The inconvenient facts of this matter are, you know, the Spaniards basically introduced slavery to North America in 1502 or 1503. You're never going to hear that. The Native Americans had slaves. The Royal Africans were selling their own people into slavery, the darker skins selling the lighter skins.
Well, that's why I'm offended by the name Royals. I think the Royals should change their name because we wanted to get away from the royalty.
That's right, Kev. We're way too colonial. I mean,
right.
This is madness when you're ascribing, you know, in direct opposition to the facts on the ground. You're ascribing a narrative would say, well, these Braves were innocent savages, and we put our colonial aspirations on them. No, just let the Native Americans. Some of them love it. Some love the Braves. Some love the Chiefs.
Most do.
Just go with the facts and stop ascribing some sort of dream narrative that you have in your head of colonialism. And that's what this is all about.
You got it.
This was programming these kids. And let's get I'm glad that's what you and our president are doing. So thanks.
Awesome.
Tim.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate the call, man. Call anytime. Good stuff right there. 913-408-7957. I am not a real-time history fact checker. So we allow callers to say things. If we hear things that don't sound right to us, we'll check some of those out. I didn't hear Steven say anything that I need to fact check there. I'm not going to look up the Royal Africans or the Spaniards in the 1500s.
Yeah, that's a little bit late.
Yeah, I'm just not going to get bogged down with that.
Too much.
But if you are offended by mascots, the Royals are named after the people that we fled from. This country was literally founded by people who fled the Royal Kingdom and said, we're not living under this oppression anymore. We're out of here. You're no good. We hate you. We're leaving. We're finding another place to live.
We had the monarchs, the kings.
All the above. It's crazy. I'm not sure why it ever turned to that. That's really what you hated. How did we name all the things we did after those things? But we've done it, and nobody cared. The point is nobody cares. Nobody's offended by that. Nobody's offended by the royal family in England anymore. I personally think it's a joke. I know a lot of people, you know, make a living off gossip and stuff from the royal family, but I don't understand it. They're not in power. It's their history. It's their tradition. They get to do what they want. If they love that and they want to take their tax dollars and fund that family for hundreds of millions of dollars a year every year, knock yourself out. It's not my country or place to tell them, but you got to admit from an American perspective, it looks pretty silly because even the most popular presidents in this country, we are ready to kick out after 8 years, and we don't think much of them. But they can circle back, decades later, and history will remember them for something maybe very positive. But they're popular for about a minute and a half out of office. The best ones disappear. Like George Bush has been the smartest guy there is. You rarely see the guy. So if you ask people about George W. Bush, his polling's probably pretty decent because he hasn't said anything. And as lame, my complaint with George W. Bush is maybe isn't a complaint. Maybe he did us all a favor. But my God, he just pulled out of the party because Trump was in the party? Like he's no longer a Republican? We sit here and talk about the Democrats and what they're going to do in 26 and 28 and who's going to lead the charge and who's going to be the face of it. Well, that's been Obama since 2006 when he first started running. George Bush just pulled out and said, hell no, I don't want to be part of this Trump party. And maybe he did us a favor, I don't know. But you would think it would be nice if he showed up at a convention, gave a speech or something at some point, something, really classy about 9/11 and America pulling together back in those days, maybe a remembrance to his presidency, something. They won't have it because the Bush family hates Trump. And he's taken their party away from them. And I, for one, am okay with that. Very okay with that. I'm also okay that the executive producer got his show taken away from him at 60 Minutes. He is now resigned. Bill Owens was the executive producer of 60 Minutes and said he no longer has complete control of the operation and is no longer allowed to be independent from the corporation. CBS is merging. Well, they and Paramount are the same company. So Paramount Plus, all this streaming you hear, whatever. Paramount's cranking out one hit after another, but they're hemorrhaging cash. It's expensive content, and they've not gotten nearly enough subscribers to sign up for Paramount Plus. Paramount Channel on cable does really well. A lot of the programming winds up there, but then you're like, why would I pay for the streaming when it winds up there? So they've got things they've got to figure out. They're merging with something called Skydance. And I don't know how the business merger is going to be, but it's pretty obvious that new people are thought to be running this business. And they've told 60 Minutes that you can't just go on every Sunday and bash Trump. That's not what 60 Minutes is. The brand of 60 Minutes, maybe more than any other. I mean, if you think back, I used to love CNN. I loved it. And I didn't know whether Larry King was a liberal or a conservative. I didn't know. It was an interview show every night. He had wacky, fun interviews with Ozzy Osbourne, or he'd have world leaders on. And he's equally adept at those. There were shows like, was Crossfire on CNN? There were all kinds of different shows on there that were really interesting, and you would watch and you go, okay, this is good. And then they covered news, and they covered it fairly, and they mostly covered it from Americans' perspective. Even though it was becoming an international channel, it was like, okay, we've got this war. Here it is. We're bombing this country. It was like from the American. They don't do that anymore. They went away from it. CBS was great. Like CBS, college students were studying CBS. This is journalism 101. You are inquisitive. You ask questions. You go find the truth. And even if you don't like the truth and it's not what you set out to find, you report it. They don't do that anymore. They set out with an angle on every story. They're going after Trump at every turn. And so the executive producer, Bill Owens, is out. He says, I'm not working like this anymore. If I don't have complete control to sit here every week and just hammer Donald Trump, I'm out. He'd been there forever. I think 37 years or something. He'd been with 60 Minutes, not as the executive producer. He had worked his way up. Trump also has a lawsuit going against CBS. I don't think this is a mistake. I think it's $10 billion with a B, $10 billion because of the fake editing they did with Kamala Harris during the election. It's basically an election interference lawsuit against a media conglomerate. And the person suing them is the president of the United States. So as you're watching all these media outlets pivot and change, and they are, what we don't have the answer to yet is, are they becoming real and honest, or are they afraid of Trump? Are they scared, okay, this guy's the president, he can harm our company, and he will, because all we did was harm him. We tried to jail him. We tried to impeach him. We tried to take away his money. You can go as deep as you want. It doesn't seem like, I keep going back to this. Do you guys realize that CNN showed one live rally of Trump during the campaign? One rally live. It was the one he got shot. That is the weirdest coincidence ever. And after he got shot, how do you not show all of them live after he started back up? There's so many coincidences and weird things that have happened since Trump came down that escalator. But 60 Minutes is the latest to fall. The bosses are rethinking anti-Trump all day. I tend to believe that they're doing this because he's president, not because they've seen the error in their ways. I would like to think it's the marketplace. that the ratings are down, that Americans don't want to watch the Chiefs play the Broncos on a Sunday afternoon, and it bleeds over into 60 Minutes, and the first story out is just bash, bash, bash Trump. They literally go from an 80% conservative audience to an 80% liberal audience in a 2-minute break. That's not good for business. It might be better to find things more down the middle. Now, that's not what we do here at KCMO Talk Radio. You know who and what we are. This is our brand. We were never 60 Minutes or CNN. We're not wrecking anything. We're building something that is popular with people, that they like. And it's not for everyone. But we don't apologize for that. Most things in America today are not for everyone. What's the one thing everybody does? And not literally everyone, the closest thing that one thing everybody does. They veg out on their phone. That's pretty much it. Not everybody drives. You know, some people take the bus or a train. Not everybody exercises. Not everybody eats fast food. Not any product you see. I don't remember the last time I saw somebody that didn't have a phone on them. This is the one thing we all do. So everything else other than that is trying to find their way. And in the media, they might want to think about playing it a little more down the road. Now, down the middle. It hasn't really worked so far for CNN. They have conservative analysts on every night now. And these clips, the clips are huge of Scott Jennings, and I forget the other guy's name, but because I don't really watch, but I see the clips. And they're everywhere. They're like, watch this conservative light up this panel of liberals on CNN. So people are seeing it, but they're not converting folks like you and I to go watch that show just for the 2 minutes that Scott Jennings is excellent. So it isn't enough to convert. Their ratings are still way down. But they are at least showing some fairness. I've heard Dana Bash ask some real questions. I've heard Jake Tapper ask some real questions. They're getting liberals and Democrats on and saying, yeah, but what about this? And they're asking things they wouldn't before. They still won't point out that they will never point out Trump's wins. That's what's really missing. When I repeatedly say on the show that Trump needs wins, it's because the liberal media will never show it. Of a $500 billion contracts coming in from Norway for pharmaceuticals and plants to be built in America and make drugs here. Have you heard this reported in the news? Nobody's seen it. It's been nowhere. Nobody's talking about it. They don't report the wins. They're not going to tell you, hey, yeah, these tariffs over here are a problem with the stock market, or Americans in polling are uneasy. What they don't ask in the polling is, do you think the tariffs will be good for America? They ask, will this be good for the economy? Should he be doing this? Things like that. They never ask the question, are tariffs good for the United States of America? I want to see that polling. I want to see if people understand this is great for the country long term and it will pay off somewhere down the road. To me, that's much more interesting than ignoring all the positive things that are happening because of tariffs. And I think they said we're getting close to $8 trillion worth of investment by companies and countries so far in this country. That's bricks and mortar. That's products being made here. We're coming there. We're making things in your country. You know how much $8 trillion is, for crying out loud? It's an insane amount of plants and manufacturing and jobs. It's going to be epic, and most of this will happen after Trump is gone. They don't want to tell you that part. 913-408-7957. If you'd like to join us, we come back. Mark is going to tell us about his perfect Chiefs draft. He has nailed it. You're not going to believe this story. It's something else. Next on Uncanceled. Uncanceled continues on KCMO Talk Radio. It is draft day. The NFL draft starts tonight. I call this draft day. It used to be one day, right? Or maybe a little bleed over the next day. It's a 3-day event now. It's happening in Green Bay. But I call this draft day because what everybody really loves is the first round. Yes, sometimes it drags, but when the trades happen, it's wild. Everybody has hopes that their team is about to draft Patrick Mahomes and win 3 Super Bowls. That doesn't happen very often, but it happened here. It makes it fun. It's going to be great. One of the great short interviews making the rounds this week about draft day is with the great Lawrence Taylor, a Hall of Fame linebacker for the New York Giants, long time ago, who on draft day, it wasn't the spectacle it is now, wasn't in a big theater waiting for his name to be called so he could come up on stage. He was at home waiting for his phone to ring. And he was asked this week again, on draft day, what was that like for you? He goes, well, it was different than I was at home. And the lady said, what do you remember about draft day? He said, ma'am, I had 41 Coors Lights that day. I don't remember anything about draft day. She said, well, were you surrounded by your family or was there? He goes, no, just my drinking buddies. Lawrence Taylor.
Times have changed.
Unbelievable. Mark Van Sickle has done something amazing. There's an auto draft available online. The game, let's just call it a game, for lack of a better term. It's a game. The computer fills out the draft board, and you're Brett Veach. And so when the Chiefs selection comes up, you get to make a move. And you did this multiple times, and you went all the way through it on one of you. I've got it in my phone here. You went all the way through it on one of them, and what happened?
I got an A+ for every single pick.
How did you do this?
I just went by positional value, best available at that position for every pick. So I could have gone a variety of different directions. I could have traded, whatever. But I saw value in all of these picks, and the computer-generated thing agreed with me. So A+ for every pick.
All right. So you like Josh Simmons, tackle out of Ohio State in the first round.
Yeah, he should be a top 10 pick, but his injury from last year has him projected to drop down a little bit. He might not make it to the Chiefs, but if he does, that would be a home run pick.
And so in your draft, he did fall to 31.
Yep.
So that's an A+. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then you went edge rusher from Ohio State. Then you went defensive lineman from South Carolina. And then a running back with pick number 95, Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee. Is that, in your opinion, that cover it? 2 defensive linemen, a tackle, and a running back with the first 4 picks. Is that a great draft?
I think that's what you need. You need to get a guy that can be a starter, maybe not this year because they have a pretty solid team already, but guys that can fill in 2026 and beyond. You got guys that can, if there's an injury, fill in as well. So I think you just need, with those first 4 picks, get guys that can start this year. They don't have to start this year, but they can start this year, and then they can start in 2026 and beyond.
A tackle from Missouri, who's from Lee Summit, Missouri, Armand Membu, is said to maybe go in the top 10 tonight. That would be amazing. And Luther Burden, first round, yes or no?
I think he will end up going first round. I have seen some mocks of him going to the Chiefs, which I would really like him with the Chiefs, but I just don't think that there's a need at this point for him.
They've just been drafting that position. Where does he rank among wide receivers?
I think right now he's probably the 3rd wide receiver.
Okay. Boy, he's talented.
Mm-hmm.
And Devin Neal from KU and DJ Giddens are skill position players. They're both running backs. I think they're going to get drafted, but not tonight. So possibly a couple of Mizzou guys tonight. It should be fun. We like the draft, and we will all be watching. Will you be buying an on-location premium ticket to the World Cup?
No, I will not.
So FIFA announced there's another operation called On Location, that in Kansas City, the premium seating, cheapest seat is $1,225 per person per game. This is face value, folks.
Ouch.
This is not aftermarket.
It's going to be tough.
Up to $3,000 each. Now, they want you to know these are not the general seats on sale. That will be later this year. And while it's bad publicity to have these big ticket items out first, it's good business to have them out first. They want to sell these out and then sell the lower price tickets. So I understand what they're doing. It's how it works. And Kauffman Stadium, Sports Illustrated ranked it the number 19 ballpark in baseball. I was surprised it was that high. Were you?
I think that's about right.
It's about right.
The fountains looks nice.
Said it's a little too spacious. They like intimate ballparks. The Vince Show is coming up next. Have a great evening.